What's good? It's your boy Fanon. Okay, we are 2 days away from a very good championship bout in the welterweight division. Jeff Horn, the WBO welterweight champion, against Terence Bud Crawford, the former WBA, WBC, WBO, and IBF 140-pound champion that is moving up to challenge Jeff Horn for his title. And there's a bunch of very interesting news coming out. And so I'm going to cover it. Basically three things. I'm going to talk about what Bob Arum said about why Crawford is on the ESPN Plus app. Also, a revelation about Terence Crawford's gloves that Glenn Rushton and Horn's team had suggested that now winds up that they were correct. That Terence Crawford will be using horse-haired gloves that they believe should be outlawed. And then some things that Terence Crawford said about having been, when he got hurt by Yuriokas Gamboa. I was about to mix up somebody else, Ugas, with Yuriokas Gamboa. But yeah, when he got hurt by Yuriokas Gamboa at 135 pounds when he was defending his title against Yuriokas Gamboa. Now, before I do that, I want to thank everybody that subscribed to the channel. If you've not subscribed, please subscribe and hit the bell icon so that you can be notified when we release videos, and also participate in the live streams that we have. Thank you everybody that supports the channel and supports the cause related to the channel. Thank you guys very, very much. So let me start off with the first, which is that, and I'm reading this. I have not heard it. I've heard Bob Arum say this more than one time, that ESPN favors favors Terence Crawford over Lomachenko and wants Top Rank to make Terence Crawford as the featured boxer on that network, which is starkly different than Bob Arum's approach to Lomachenko, where you know that it's always seemed as he's had a greater affinity for Vasily Lomachenko than Terence Crawford. Now, I have grown to appreciate Lomachenko more and more. You know, definitely over the last bout that he had with Linares was the best bout that I've seen with him. I really did appreciate the way that he got up, from being knocked down, and he came and stopped Linares with a body shot. The more Vasily Lomachenko learns to speak English, the more I like him. But I do really believe that the more accomplished boxer and the guy that's more deserving to be number one pound for pound boxer in America, in the world, is Terence Crawford. And the demographic conversation that I've had about how Showtime has focused on the most actively involved demographics of boxing fans, that is something that is being echoed by ESPN, according to Bob Arum, the head of Top Rank. So let me get into that. Arum explains why Crawford is being featured on ESPN Plus app. For American boxing fans to be able to watch this weekend's bout between WBO welterweight champion Jeff Horn and mandatory Terence Crawford, you will need to subscribe to the ESPN Plus app. Crawford is considered one of the premier boxers in the sport, and it's clear that the network wanted to showcase him on this new platform. Bob Arum, the head of Top Rank, explained the decision to BoxingScene.com. The bout was postponed, and when we revised our deal with ESPN to take into account the digital platform, we wanted to really, in effect, start with the blockbuster. And Crawford is the poster boy of ESPN. They have really embraced him, made a fuss over him. Crawford would be an ideal figure to help drive subscriptions to the app that costs $4.99 a month and features live bouts and the vast Top Rank archives of past bouts, along with other original programming. It's not a question of who is a better boxer, he or Lomachenko, continued Arum, but he's the American, He's the Midwesterner. He fits into their demographics, and so they wanted to showcase him this bout where he's trying to claim a third title in a third weight division was the one ESPN latched onto. They also know that a lot of people knew Horn because close to 5 million people watched Horn's match with Manny Pacquiao last July. Horn will be making the second defense of the title he captured from Pacquiao after winning a voluntary defense over Gary Cochran last December. And Crawford makes his welterweight debut after unifying the entire junior welterweight division with a KO of Julius Ndungo to unite the WBA, WBC, WBO, and IBF belts. Now, and the ESPN broadcast from the MGM Grand in Las Vegas begins at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Now, the demographic that he's talking about is ESPN's demographic, and ESPN's demographic is primarily American, and it's also primarily African American. And I mean, not primarily, but in large part, and that's why they do so well with the, the NBA and other sports. And I've always said that Bob Arum is in love with the Eastern European boxers because they cost less money. There are clearly some very, very good boxers. I'm excited about Deverenchenko, very excited about Lomachenko, Demetrius Bivol. There are a lot of, very solid Eastern European guys that are coming over that are doing very well, who I enjoy watching. But ESPN is in the business of trying to make sure that they get ratings. And if you listen to the presentation that was done by Steven Espinoza of Showtime, when he talked about the demographic that Showtime was trying to go after, he talked about the Latin speaking communities and the Black American communities, and specifically relied upon the stats that I think within Latin America, and forgive me, I never know what to call Spanish speaking Americans, because some are Mexican, some are not, right? And those are different groups of people, but lumped into one language category based on the fact that they speak a common language. However, 60% of that group who are sports fans consider themselves boxing fans. And 50% of that 60% that considers themselves active boxing fans consider themselves avid boxing fans. So essentially 30% of that market are avid boxing fans. Of Black Americans, 50% of people that consider themselves or ourselves to be boxing fans or sports fans, half consider themselves to be boxing fans. And so that would be 50%. And then 50% of that 50%, which is 25% of sports fans, consider themselves to be avid boxing fans. So that is a very active pool, a large and active pool of boxing fans. And that is that is a market that has been very, very underserved by promoters over at least the last decade. Specifically, Oscar De La Hoya and Top Rank it's been very obvious the desire to appeal to other demographics. And so that is a welcome comment from Bob Arum about Terence Crawford. And we'll see if that holds out to be true. The thing that I think is even more important, though, for Terence Crawford, is for the media to begin to support him to the degree that he needs to be supported. And but his promoter clearly, and you can see it in this particular note, says, it's not about who's better, right? This is a question. It's not a question of who's the better boxer, he or Lomachenko. Right? Like, why would ESPN be so actively engaged with with Terence Crawford? Why would they want to spotlight Terence Crawford? And Bob Arum says it's not about who's the better boxer, right? He or Lomachenko. Well, it might as well be. It might as well be, because the better boxer is Terence Crawford. So it doesn't matter which one, but you can hear in Arum's tone who he thinks the better boxer is. And it's almost as if, and I think Bob Arum's at a point where he's too old to really tell a bunch of just flat out stories, right? Which differentiates him from Eddie Hearn. I think at this point in time, Bob Arum is just going to do Bob Arum, and Bob Arum, whatever. As far as him telling you a story, he'll just tell you what he thinks straight to your face. Now, if he gets corny, and I'm not saying he's not going to be manipulative and do the things that he's always done, but I have a feeling he's telling the truth about this. Now, that on the other hand does not really mean that one of the things, there's been a lot of conversation about what Terence Crawford needs to do as far as getting himself to be more known and whether or not he's being outward enough about about promoting himself and all that. And my stance is that, some people need promoters that don't really have the inclination to do that themselves. But, and I think that's the case with Terence Crawford. I do not think, however, that that's the case with Jeff Horn or the case with Glenn Rushton. They seem like they are very, very focused on promoting themselves and letting everybody know that Jeff Horn is boxing. And one of the things that they did through this whole, Australian media thing that they've been doing, which I'm telling you, I think they've done a terrific job. I've enjoyed it a lot. I find that I like Glenn Rushton. I like Jeff Horn. I like the way that they've approached this bout. I don't think they're going to win it, but they have really been putting they've really put their work in as far as providing content, interviews, trying to generate some type of buzz about the match, which is completely absent from Bob Arum. And you might be able to hear in Bob Arum's voice when he's like, look, this is ESPN that wants him on this app, whatever. I'd rather have Lomachenko. But in the midst of this thing, they talked about something I thought was interesting, that being Jeff Horn's team. Because when they talk about these, they had accused Terence Crawford of wearing horse-haired gloves and believing that is unfair. But now it's been confirmed that what they said was true and that Terence Crawford is going to wear horse-haired gloves. Crawford's trainer, and this is Crawford. Now, Bud Crawford's manager, Bomac, has really been out there and going back and forth with Glenn Rushton about the match. And that was one of the things that was talked about. So in this other article that came out, Bomac starts talking about what they're going to do to Jeff Horn, and at the end of it comes in the fact that they are going to wear those horsehair gloves. Terence Crawford camp has warned Jeff Horn that the pound-for-pound sensation has an answer for any question the Australian boxing champion might pose. Crawford's trainer, Brian Bomac McIntyre, finally broke the ice with the Australian media late on Tuesday night outside the top-ranked gym in Las Vegas, where the traveling contingent had been waiting for the American to complete his session. McIntyre had previously promised to ban a media ban on Australian outlets because they would twist our words. Their core message was very serious. Horn is just another hurdle Crawford will clear easily on his way to dominating a third weight division. Crawford captured his first world titles at lightweight, and last year he unified the entire junior welterweight division by uniting the WBC, WBO, WBA, and IBF world titles. What he's going to do? He's going to whoop Jeff Horn's behind, McIntyre said. He's going to clean up the division, then ride off into the sunset. Asked how Crawford was looking, McIntyre said, "You already know he's good to go. Next question." Asked if he was worried about Horn, he said, "Not really. His boxing skills are kind of not up to par. I know he's a determined boxer. He comes to get the job done, and when you get boxers like that, it brings out the best in the other boxer. McIntyre also confirmed Crawford would wear the controversial Everlast MX gloves made of horsehair, saying he had worn them for all of their previous 32 bouts without a problem. I don't know what they have in them. I hope they got rocks in them, he said. He also took another swipe at Horn's trainer Glenn Rushton, continuing their verbal back and forth. He's thrown a lot of shots at me. I don't throw shots at him. So right now I'm like, F him, McIntyre said. And then the last little bit that was explained that I'm going to cover here is what Terence Crawford had said in response to Glenn Rushton bringing up that Yuriokas Gamboa had hurt him. 30-year-old Crawford envisions making a smooth adjustment to his new weight class and is more than confident he'll take Horn's power well. Well, everybody keeps resorting back to the Gamboa match, Crawford said during a conference call on Tuesday. You know, if you look at the Gamboa match, that was 2014. I'm in 2018 right now, you know, and they can't label a boxer that have hurt me more than Gamboa hurt me. So I feel like I grew in that bout. I was a little arrogant in that bout, and he made me respect it. And I just felt like I done grew and learned from that moment, and it hasn't happened since. So if you're going to bank on if they're going to bank their shot on Gamboa, then so be it. The intelligent and versatile Crawford is consistently listed as a 10-1 favorite over Horn. Horn, also 30, will attempt to make his second defense of the WBO welterweight title. Now, those things being brought up, look, the horse-haired gloves, I don't know anything about that. There's a lot of conversations back and forth about what, them being puncher's gloves. There's also talks about Reyes gloves. So people in the comment section can let me know what they think about whether or not that's a legitimate criticism or not. I know that Floyd Mayweather Jr. and Jeff Finnick had also brought up the fact that horse-haired gloves you can easily move the material away from the knuckles and therefore make the punches from the boxer that is wearing those gloves more powerful. And it, basically gives you a little extra oomph, right? And I think Glenn Rushton mentioned that it was like competing in just with bare hands, right? So I don't know, but I do have to commend the research done by Glenn Rushton in uncovering the fact that Terence Crawford was going to be wearing those gloves. Now, I thought that I'd heard Bomac say that he wasn't, and that or maybe he just said that they don't cheat, right? So maybe he's just, not considering horsehair gloves as cheating. But it is what it is, and those are definitely going to be in the mix. And if that is true about those gloves, then I will tell you, I think I'm even more solid on my prediction for this match. I have a lot of respect for Jeff Horn. I very, very much enjoy listening to Glenn Rushton and the things these guys have said and talked about. I really enjoyed the Manny Pacquiao bout, but I think that Terence Crawford is going to be too much, and Jeff Horn's propensity to be cut is going to come into play, and that more than likely that's how the bout is going to stop. It's going to stop on cuts. If he does make it through the bout, I believe it's going to be a unanimous decision win for Terence Bud Crawford. The most interesting thing to me about this bout is how Terence Crawford is going to look at 147 pounds. Is he going to look strong? Is he going to have to resort to boxing only and winning the bout by staying away, jabbing and moving, that type of deal? Or is he going to really have big cracking power on Jeff Horn, who's a big welterweight? Because I think that'll be very telling for what happens with the bouts that I really do want to see down the road, whether it be Jeff Horn or whether it be Terence Crawford that walks out with the win, and that's against Errol Spence Jr. And that also I'm probably going to make a separate video on this. I'm loving how Terence Crawford and Jeff Horn Terence Crawford and Errol Spence are both refusing to give each other full credit. Where Terence Crawford said he's not sure that Errol Spence is going to be the last one standing at welterweight that he has to get to. Like somebody else might beat Errol Spence before that time. And then how Errol Spence named Vasyl Lomachenko was the number 1 pound for pound guy and Terence Crawford number 2. Kind of, undercover little disses. Anyway, it is what it is. I'm really looking forward to this match this weekend. And with that, I'm out. Peace.